Sawyer Clark. Okay, Sawyer Clark from the West Coast, all the way here. I'm glad that you made it here.
Made it.
Good. Okay, here you go.
I am overly caffeinated and underslept, so I appreciate your patience. I'm Sawyer Clark, and I just wanted to warn everybody. I'm going to say two C words that may offend some people. The first is California, and the second is colossal. So everyone just take a deep breath. There's lovers and haters in this room for both of those things. I'm an Oregonian by birth and by nature, but I do live in California now, and I'm going to talk about colossal just for a little bit. So forgive me, and we'll try to move past that. Next slide, please. I'm Sawyer Clark. I live in California now. I grew up in Oregon. My father, 5 years ago, started working on tissue culturing some of the main varieties that agricultural growers grow. Started with colossal. Why colossal? Well, these trees on the left were planted on my family farm when I was 4 years old, holding the little grafting putty bucket, and those were the only varieties he had. So after he watched Sean and his colleagues at Oregon State allow the Oregon hazelnut industry to explode via filbert blight resistant tissue culture varieties, he thought, hey, why not do that with chestnuts? As he says now, if he knew how hard it was going to be, he would have never started. That was 5 years ago, and 1 year ago, he started having some success. And so he told me I should start taking it seriously, and then he suckered me in to helping out. And so I've been helping out for the last year or so. So what are we trying to do? We are trying to take chestnut trees like you see there and get them to root on their own, self-rooted, so you don't have to graft and you do know what the eventual tree will be. So the whole point, make chestnut cultivars available to growers across the U.S. at scale. Next slide, please. So Craig, my dad, he's the father, he's the farmer, he's the mad scientist. We started with blueberries. The big guys started doing blueberries. The price fell in the Willamette Valley. Sean et al. Made eastern filbert blight resistant hazelnuts possible. So for my middle school and high school, we started planting hazelnuts. Then I went off to college, joined the Army, was never going to farm. My parents said when they died I was going to turn the farm into a Walmart. And then went to business school, realized I was going to be good at nothing other than using my family background as a way to get a job, and ran into a startup really at the time who was trying to own and operate almond, pistachio, and date farms. So that was about 5 years ago now. Did some research during grad school on the carbon cycle of some of the West Coast crops and how to use aquifer replenishment and things like pistachios. And then my dad, after 4 years of basically utter failure trying to do tissue culture, had some success, said, hey, you should come help me get organized and tell people about this. That was a year ago. So now I'm here. He's farming hazelnuts and doesn't like to fly. So he said, Sawyer, you get to go to New York. So sorry for the B team. All right, they told me this was show and tell, so I'm going to try to show a lot of pictures and tell some stories. This is what tissue culture is. I didn't realize I was going to be the third guy to talk about this tonight, so you all know what tissue culture is by now. But this is kind of the story. I like to start with telling people it's most similar to layering, right? What you're trying to do is you're trying to get a scion to send out its own roots so that you know what the nuts and the tree growth characteristics will be like, but you don't have a graft. And you don't have a graft union and all the issues that can come with that. So you start with a grafted tree. Number one, you take a whole bunch of cuttings from that, you put them in gel media in these tubes, try to be extra clean. You hope some of them don't die. After many, many reps of that, and most of them dying many, many times, you end up, if you're lucky, with something like number 3, where you have many explants or little tiny plants growing in media. Once you have that, you then put them into these little tiny peat moss type pots, and then you hope they root. Many of them don't, some of them do. Those that do, then you put in bigger pots, and you end up at step 5. So that whole cycle from 3, 4, and 5 Like this year, in February, we were at number 3, and the plants will be 3 feet tall in September. And those will all be, that's a picture of colossal. Forgive me, that's what we had. Those are all colossals that we started multiplying in February. That was before they went dormant last fall. Next slide, please. All right, lesson learned along the way. I think Andy and his guys, and certainly Sean, know about this, and maybe some others who've tried tissue culture. There is no recipe. Oak A was super easy to get in tissue culture. Colossal took 4 years, everything died. We thought we had Boostabedazac. We took it to root, it all died. Sago's been rough, but we're getting close. Every cultivar is a little different. When you take the cutting matters, the temperature of the room matters, the light, the media, everything matters. We don't know exactly, there's no secret recipe. So that's been one of the biggest lessons learned. So we keep throwing spaghetti at the wall. 2 days ago, my dad took 200 more cuttings of a dozen different varieties and put them all in culture. Try and put them all in media, trying to see if we can get them to stick. So we just got to keep trying to get more varieties in. It's super expensive to try. Other people have mentioned that. 4 years and nothing is expensive, it turns out. But we're getting better, we think. But once you get a cultivar in culture, you can really step on the gas. 50,000 plus known cultivars, that sounds crazy. In February, we said our goal this year is 10,000 colossals. We got 8,000. So we can step on the gas once we have them stabilized. It's getting them stabilized that sometimes takes years. And subject to normal propagation cycles. We can't take a cutting in December and just hope it goes. We still have, the time of the year still matters, the age of the cutting still matters, all that still matters. Next slide. Last thing I'll say in this room especially, and then I think the next one is just questions, but there are people in this room, some of whom I met for the first time today, who have been working on getting good cultivars for farming, for restoration, for all sorts of things, longer than I've been alive. Right? And I know some people might be offended by that. But the number of times I put this bottom right corner, that's a YouTube video thumbnail. The number of times I've watched that YouTube video and other YouTube videos from this conference, and the number of, thank you, this is not the whole list, but this is just a small sample of the people who have taken this industry to where we are today. And our hope, and my dad's hope that I'm kind of channeling for this audience, is can we take those successes and those lessons learned and then allow growers who want to put in 10, 15, 20, 30 acres to say, I want 6 rows of Laval's Monster, I want a Sago every 7th, I wanted an interplant Peach and Ching. Great, we can do that now. That's what we're trying to work towards. We're not going to be there right away. It's been hard, but that's what we're hoping to allow people in this room to be able to do. Next slide, please. I think that's it. 7 minutes. All right.
Everyone is on time today. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Are there questions about what you've seen here with this presentation?
Sean, yeah.
What's the basal medium you use? Where is she being scooped? Is it woody flat medium? BKW?
Can you repeat the question first?
Yeah, it's a question about what is the media? What's the mix that we use for tissue culture? It's variations of woody plant media is what we found most successful. We found some varieties where we up the zeatin, or we up the, we just keep tinkering. And that goes back to the no recipe. What works for hazelnuts didn't exactly work, but some of the walnut things seemed to help, or some of the pecan mix, or some just trying to look around the world, what else has worked for woody trees, and tinker. And we think some of that may have not have mattered. It may have been about when we took the cutting. So, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? So, yeah.
Can you describe your facilities to produce those 8,000?
Yeah. Our facilities is the family farm I grew up on. I call my dad's farm now, and my mom's, but I call it the Skunk Works Factory. So he's got all sorts of grafts that are all labeled, and he basically pushes scion wood, and then we take those to a laminar flow hood, and we have a little, in the back porch basically to get them initiated. And then we have 2 commercial nursery partners that once we have them in culture, we can say, all right, guys, this, here's 200, here's 300 explants. We want 10,000. And then, their job, some of you have worked with these groups, their job is to take our 200 and make them 10,000. And then we take them back once they're at that size. And, we grow them. And then actually, to some people, some nurseries that we're working with want them small. They'd like to grow them with their facility. So we can be flexible about what size and stage the plants arrive.
Okay, we'll give a round of applause to Sawyer.